General Understanding is brought to you by Dominion Energy's Talent Acquisition Team and Veterans Resource Group. We're proud to share our military podcast with you. We invite you to visit dominionenergy.com/military to learn more about our military programs and Dominion Energy careers to find the career you love.
Welcome to General Understanding, a podcast for Dominion Energy employees where we speak with individuals who support our military and veteran communities, and where we will recognize veteran and other military-connected employees who are helping to transform the way we do business. In today's episode, we speak with Kathy Roth-Douquet, founder and CEO of Blue Star Families. Founded in 2009 by military spouses, Blue Star Families empowers military families to thrive while they serve. Through groundbreaking research, innovative programs, and with chapters all over the world, the organization is committed to creating vibrant communities of mutual support. Today's topics will include what it means to create welcome for a military family, Blue Star Families surveys, research, and the impacts they have on our military families, and the role and importance of the military spouse. Thank you for listening, and we hope you enjoy this episode.
I'll hold your hands and you hold mine. Connect and walk ourselves up to the top. Support and power develop till we can rise above exploitation and pain.
Welcome to General Understanding, a conversation for betterment for all employees to learn more about veterans, a platform for unity, embracing communities, perfect opportunity to value you and me, those who served our country and fought for our rights, to the family and friends of those who sacrificed. This is dedicated to all, and by the way, I salute our armed forces every day as your holiday.
Connect and walk ourselves up to the top. Support and power develop till we can rise above exploitation and pain.
I'm your host, Matt Kellum, Military and Recruitment Program Coordinator, and today's episode features a really, really cool and interesting guest, and actually someone that I've really enjoyed getting to know over the recent months, although I've known of the organization for much longer. But today we have with us Kathy Roth-Douquet, founder and CEO of Blue Star Families. Welcome, Kathy. How are you?
Hey, Matt. It's great to be here with you today.
Yeah, thanks for joining us. So just a little backstory and not a ton of detail for our listeners, but I've had the opportunity to get to meet your husband, a former Marine, and I'm a former Marine. And we've gotten to know each other really over the past year and a half. And then it was interesting that I was able to make the connection to say, wait a minute, I've seen Kathy speak at some events and I think I know who she is. Is this your wife? And he said, yes. And so anyway, actually it was following an event in Virginia where I saw you provide a keynote remarks. And then from there, I knew that I wanted to get better connected with Blue Star Families and ultimately meet you. And here we are today. And throughout our conversation, we may reference some of the opportunities that we've recently had to start working together. And I know we'll point some of those out. But with that, Kathy, if you don't mind, please introduce yourself better to our listeners and tell us a little bit about your experiences in life, especially as a military spouse, and then what ultimately led you to starting things with Blue Star Families.
Yeah, it was very fun when my husband reconnected me to you. He's like, oh, I met this guy, Matt, from Energy. I'm like, I met him too. The beauty of the Roth-Douquet. There's not any other of us out there. If you run into one, it's my family. So, or my family, more to the point. Very excited to be able to talk to the folks at Dominion about Blue Star Families, because I did not come from a military family. The whole military world was pretty foreign to me before I met my husband, fell in love with him, married him, and I found myself in this new world. It was people who were doing a very heavy lift for our country. I married him before the war, and then, boom, 9/11, and suddenly everything about it was different. And I felt like we really need to tell our story to the larger society, the larger, our neighbors in our community, and also nationally. And we need to have help so that we can keep living this life, because it's a vital, valuable thing we do. But we can't do it alone, and we can't always do it the way it's set up for us to do it right now. And who better to help make change but the people themselves who live this life? And that's really what Blue Star Families was started to answer.
Well, and that is something that, again, I have been introduced to really probably going back more like 5 years, but frankly, more recently, having been introduced to you as well as some of your other team members across the country. And I would agree. You mentioned who better than to tell the story. We do the same. At Dominion Energy, we want our employees, but especially in this case, our veteran employees and military spouse, to tell their story, or to tell the story about their experiences with Dominion Energy. So yeah, there's nothing more powerful, than to hear it from the folks who have experienced it in some way, shape, or form. Can you? So that you gave a little overview of the organization, but can you take us maybe a little bit deeper into just your own experiences? And you certainly feel free to share whatever you're comfortable sharing. But what were there some defining moments or some points where you said, you know what, I want to start this organization because of XYZ?
Yeah, there sure were. Some of your members might have been around during 9/11 and during the start of this, the change to the 21st century. And back in the old days, there's a lot more regularity in the military lifestyle, and wars were short. They were 100 days, they were 30 days. And when the Iraq and Afghanistan war started, we all thought, hey, 6 months, 9 months, this is going to be over. I wrote a book in 2005, which was published in 2006. It was about who serves and who doesn't and what effect that has on the country. It's called AWOL. And when I was writing it, my publisher, HarperCollins, was like, come on, you got to finish up. We got to get this out there. The wars are going to be over and no one's going to read this anymore. Right?
I wish that was the case.
Isn't that something else when you think about it? And what became clear is that we were settling into a battle rhythm of total expeditionary, total deployment all the time. And it's not what we were designed to do as a military. I'm also a little bit of a researcher and a policy person, as you know. I actually teach a course at the Princeton Graduate School for Public and International Affairs about civil military affairs. Our military, the one that we live in, it was designed for people who serve for a short period of time, 2 to 3 years, are not married, go back to their regular lives afterwards, will be mostly in garrison just in case a big, two-state war happens. Right. And everything about that changed. But a lot of the underlying ways we organize and support our military and our military families hasn't caught up with the fact that we're in for 8 to 11 years now, because it's a really professional force. And that means most people are married and have children, 2.6 million dependents, and they're not living on base anymore. Now they live in communities, 75%, because housing is expensive, all spread out from each other. So they don't have that, internal network. And we live in an economy where middle-class people, guess what? They need 2 incomes. You can't just live on that captain salary, that staff sergeant's salary, and field a family of 4 and get them educated and have 2 cars. So you need that second person to work, except military spouses, they can't work because they keep moving and they keep getting far from where their training was or the kinds of industries that they had previously worked in. So these are actually solvable problems, but they're not solvable unless we organize, ask for policy change, and then ask for help, not just from the services or from government, but also from corporations, who we have them understand our spouses and help employ them, from neighbors who need to help out and understand that a third of our military, hundreds of thousands of people moving every summer, and they need to get plugged in. Otherwise, they're not going to have a good experience. There's lots of people we need to get involved in this effort. And I know this myself because, again, as I said, not from a military family. There's a funny story I like to tell. The first time in my life I was on a military base, I was a college student. climbing over the fence, trespassing on an army depot to protest nuclear weapons. You know,
I remember hearing you say that once. Yeah.
Yeah, that was my experience with the military. Fast forward, I'm moving in, you know, with the toddler and the infant and the husband getting ready for deployment. And I found that as I'm a resourced person, you know, I went to fancy schools. I had great jobs. I'm educated. I would find myself lonely, sad, not knowing where to go and what to turn because I was hundreds, if not thousands of miles away from family and friends.
Well, thank you for sharing all of that. And some things that stand out is I've had the chance, in my role to learn that the military family, so more specifically, I guess, the military spouses, we're talking about it as an example, will relocate and move on average about every 2.5 years or so. And so back to some of your points, there are so many stresses that if you just stop for a moment and think about it, so many stresses that are put onto that family, but especially that spouse and of course the children and so forth. But it's hard to find employment or sustain meaningful employment. Then that, and then just from there's so many other impacts. I think you just mentioned maybe even some mental impacts. So, it really is important for companies like Dominion Energy and many others of us in the community to learn about Blue Star families and in other like organizations and figure out what is it that we can do either as the company or just individuals within the company to partner and help out. On that note, that actually gets us to one of your newer events that I am very proud to say Dominion Energy has committed to sponsoring. Excuse me, but can you tell us about the Welcome Week 2020, but also what it means to create welcome for the military family?
Yeah, thanks for teeing that up, Matt, because I'm super excited about this, and I am also so happy that Dominion Energy is one of our founding partners as we pilot this idea that we really want to see grow and proliferate and be something that's part of everybody's life in the country going forward. What we see in our survey, and Blue Star Family is super data oriented. We put out surveys every year. They're used by Congress, Secretary of Defense, military services, other nonprofits to understand our population. And what we see over time is military families feel isolated. Half feel that they don't belong in the communities in which they live, but they would like to feel they belong. And we could see through that where there are best practices and what makes a difference. One thing we know is that there's a big opportunity to make people feel like they belong, and that's when they move. If people are welcomed when they come in, then everything flows from there. They know where to go for the things that they need, the appointments, the doctors, the friends, the connections, and then that builds and builds and builds on each other. If it never happens, if it doesn't happen in the first few months, that isolation sets in and it's a downward spiral as opposed to a virtuous upward one.
Sure.
So what Blue Star Families is setting out to do is to create the last week in September. People have moved over the summer. They've gotten their kids into school. They've gotten a few of their photos on their pictures on the wall. Let's look around and let's use that week to welcome military families into the communities in which they've moved. Reaching out to our partners, such as Dominion Energy, some of the neighborhood organizations here in DC, Dog Tag Bakery is part of that. We might lean on some of the museums that are part of our Blue Star Museum program. So we can say, this week, we're going to have a big effort, let you know there are people who are really glad you're here, have messaging, have gifts, have coupons. When it's not COVID, we'll have little street fairs to people to come in and walk around and see some of the shops and restaurants. We're producing yard signs that people can put up in their yard saying, "Hey, military families, welcome."
Awesome.
Right?
Yeah, that's awesome.
So many fun opportunities. We're piloting a program down in Jacksonville where the employees of one of the companies we're working for are going to just videotape little welcome messages that we're going to deliver to military families.
Cool.
Right? So, I know you moved here, and I'm glad.
Well, and that I know that our employees really appreciate and understand this when they'll hear this episode. We talk a lot about culture. We talk certainly a lot about community, as is evident from our partnership with you all, and all of these same things. And a lot of what you were describing, maybe not the sign in the yard, but maybe something on a cubicle or some sort of welcome. But we strive to do the same things for a new employee. And so I think if we're translating this, which I think, again, our listeners will plainly understand the value of what Blue Star Families offers, and especially this new welcome week that you're piloting, it is really important, never mind to welcome that family, but then for us to work with you to show them all of the fun resources, all the needed resources in their community, so that they can focus on other things and not have to worry about, finding all of that stuff on their own. There's just no better feeling than to feel like, you got someone on your side and helping you out through all these things. What are some, and now I know Dominion Energy, I've talked with some of your team members. I know Dominion Energy will be participating in short Facebook Live activities during the week. I know we'll also be teeing up other, even after that welcome week, we'll be doing some career panel discussions. So I know we'll be doing those things. What are some, are there other panels or discussions that might be, available to listeners or to some of your families during that week?
Yep. For your listeners, whether you're military or not military, we want you to join our chapter, in Virginia or anywhere in the U.S. where you're living. Our chapters are for people who serve in the military. They're also for veterans, and they're also for our civilian neighbors. We call them Blue Star neighbors, because you can't have a great experience in your community unless you're really connected to the non-military folks. And if less than 1% are serving, we can't solve our problems unless we're all about the 99% too. So we welcome everyone into our Blue Star family. And you can come to our website and see the opportunities. We have some very fun things. We're doing some virtual tours of national parks.
Oh, cool.
So people can see, what some of the opportunities are and some of the places they live, which you can take advantage of right now, even during the pandemic. Certainly the career resources that you mentioned to us, that's really important to us. We value the fact that Dominion Energy is interested in hiring military spouses. COVID has been good for us in a way because it's taught a lot of people that, the remote work is okay. People can actually do it. So, right?
I was going to say, I would absolutely agree. I'm sorry to have interrupted you, but kind of going back to my mention of, the average family or spouse, for example, moving every 2.5 years. One of the things I learned in a discussion with a military spouse group is that actually can be a company or an employer's best retention policy. So a lot of the myths are, well, I'm going to hire this individual and then, a year and a half, 2.5 or more, or whatever, they're going to go. Well, okay, but there's no tighter network, as I've come to learn it, than the military spouse network. Oh, by the way, they tend to know 6 months ahead of time when they're going to be relocated to another location. So rather than looking at it as a bad, retention perspective, look at it for the positives. 6 months in advance, you have a tight network, and then you might be able to find another, or you likely are able to find another very valuable person to come into that role. So I think there's just different ways that we need to look at the military spouse community, especially from the employer's perspective, because there's so many positives. And then the other is, you're right, COVID has been so bad for many reasons. However, I think it has been so good for probably many more reasons that we don't even know yet, but one of which being it's okay, to work remotely. You and I are in two different parts of the state of Virginia right now, and we're able to function with no issue. And I think that that's something that employers are learning. So I hope that in this case of military spouse employment, that will translate to more opportunities and more flexibility, and dispelling some of these myths or concerns about the spouse community as an employee. So you've mentioned a couple times, and I do want to provide you this opportunity because I think it's really important for our listeners to understand. We've had a couple other good organizations on the podcast, and we've got more coming. But one thing that I think a lot of individuals, and I might have been guilty of this in the past, is that we think that sometimes these organizations are just doing the feel-good stuff. But you've talked about being data-driven, your surveys, your research, your analytics. And then you've also talked about impacting policy and all these other things. Can you elaborate a little bit more on how you all are survey, research, and data driven, and maybe some examples of that?
Yeah, I'd love to, Matt. Yeah, I'm an attorney. Before I started Blue Star Families, I was working for a venture capital group in Silicon Valley, doing that remotely as we moved around. And bottom line is, I started Blue Star Families to make change in the community that I love. If I'm not actually making change, I don't need to do this. I don't need to waste everybody's time. And I certainly don't need to waste my donors' money. So I need to know that what we're doing is actually helping people. And we are like a laser beam looking at that. We start with, what are the problems? And we made a huge splash at the beginning. We grew enormously quickly because we provided data that no one else had. We were asking people who had never been asked before a range of questions that no one ever thought to ask them. But we were asking them because we lived the life, and so we knew what kinds of things we might need to see. We asked questions such as, where do you want to get your information? Turns out most people, because military families are young, so they're like other millennials and now Gen Z, they don't want to get their information from official sources.
Right.
They want to get it from friends and neighbors. They want to get it from popular culture. And this is one of the reasons we partner with people like Starbucks and Disney, because it's a great way, Sesame Street, it's a great way to deliver things that make a difference in people's lives, but do it in a way that doesn't feel like government cheese, right?
Yep.
Do it in a way that feels good. So we ask the questions, we found out the problems, we're in a position to make these really robust partnerships with, top flight organizations, then deliver solutions ourselves or take it to the military services, take it to Congress. We were able to say during COVID, hey, we're getting data that shows families are in a lot of distress because they're being kicked out of the CDC as non-essential personnel, but told that if they enroll in a local child development center, they're going to lose their spot in the CDC and won't be able to come back once COVID is over. That's terrible for them. So we were able to run that up the flagpole and get a policy change first just for the Army, and then it rolled out to all the services. No one was going to get kicked out of their spot because they had to leave during COVID. That made a huge difference in people's lives. It's something we could only do because we had the data and we also had the voice. We're kind of unusual because we're both grassroots and we're grass tops. I've got senior spouses of each of the service chiefs, and the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff is providing advice to me, is on advisory boards. So I can get to them the same way I can get to that corporal's wife, in Okinawa or in Port Machuca, So there's a lot, between data, the reach, and then the focus on the lived experience of people's lives. It lets us be super effective.
Well, and you, first of all, I do agree. When you have someone like yourself over, leading your organization, and then you have, military leaders, but also the voice of the individuals within those organizations, that's really powerful. Same as the case at Dominion Energy. So when we have our top level C-suite executives and our other executives, and then all others kind of behind and driving, in our case, our military programs and our military efforts, it certainly makes things go a little bit easier and maybe come to, the right conclusion and good results a little faster than if we were pushing the noodle up, if you will. You've mentioned in some of our discussions and even in preparing just for this discussion, military families not being on level playing fields. And I think you kind of alluded to that in your COVID and your CDC example. Are there other examples of not being on a level playing field that you're able to share?
Yeah, I think, the number one thing is the fact of military spouses not being able to work. So we have, in any given year prior to COVID, 24% solid state unemployment among military spouses. That's recession level, and that was during boom times. But wait, it gets worse, because of that minority of people who are working, 77%, more than three quarters, are underemployed. They're working below their education level, below their previous work experience level, and that hurts the family too. There were, the year after I got married and we moved from DC, where I was an appointee in the Pentagon, to Okinawa, I made about 100th of my previous salary that. And most of my military spouse career, I was lucky if I made 10% of the salary I made before I was married. And that's not just about me. That's about my family. What opportunities am I, enabling my children to have? Do I have furniture in my living room? It has cascading effects. And so that right there makes that service member's life harder. Yeah, we pay our service members a fair salary, but when the service member's household income is a fraction of the household income of their civilian neighbor, that undermines that service member's ability to feel confident about their family and their life. Does that resonate for you at all?
Absolutely. So my experience was a little bit different. Now, when I was in the military, it was 1994 to 2000. I was single. I was in the reserves. I was going to college. So I actually learned after the fact, because I had to go back and reflect. I had different challenges that I didn't even realize at the time. So I had more of the student veteran related challenges, not feeling connected to what I was studying, to what the future career opportunities, that type of thing. However, I've come to learn in the next 20 some years of working in this talent acquisition and workforce development space, just all of the things that you described, and a lot of it starts with the employment or underemployment, economic impacts. And then I think so many of our other challenges stem from that. I think if we, the employers, and we, the community, and as we're partnering together, can figure out more opportunities to pay better attention to the military spouse community for our employment opportunities, then I think that will, to the point that you were just making, will really help alleviate a lot of other things that come with those stresses. And oh, by the way, it will give peace of mind to the person serving on the front line. Not that the family doesn't serve together, but will give some peace of mind to allow them to focus on their job more so than they might be able to. And I think, again, that kind of equates very closely to the fact that many of our Dominion Energy employees are first responders and frontline individuals as it pertains to energy and utilities. And so one could argue that a Dominion Energy employee and their family has similar challenges that they need to face. So I think, again, if we can partner and take care of each other,
they can resonate with the urgency of the mission.
Absolutely.
But you're also right that if you can help with that employment, it's got cascading effects that in and of itself solve other problems. For instance, people can't afford childcare, but if you got an income, then you can now start affording childcare. People are feeling this disconnection from their community, but if you're employed and you have colleagues, now suddenly we see that it's one of the best ways military families do feel connected to the community is when the spouse works in that community. So there's lots of things that get solved once you solve that issue.
Yeah, well, there's so many. You and I think, and we could talk for a long, long time because there's so many. Your organization does so much good, and you all cover so much, as you've alluded to, just a little bit in some key areas. So I really appreciate not only your time and being with us, helping us understand a little bit more about the importance of Blue Star families, but especially the military spouse and all the things that we can do. I'm so excited for our partnership that we're forming more formally now between Dominion Energy and Blue Star families. And especially, you mentioned the chapters. I don't want to get away from that too quickly. You mentioned the chapters in the different areas, and one of the things I'm really proud of is that we've had some opportunities, and now we need to continue to push on it and make sure that that they stay connected. But our Veterans Resource Group within Dominion Energy also has different chapters, not as many as you all do, but we've even had some conversations where we've introduced our Veterans Resource Group chapter leads to some of your chapter representatives. And I hope that we can just kind of force multiply all the good partnership opportunities out there. So I want to switch gears just a little bit. We're nearing the end of our conversation. We have a portion of our show that our listeners have come to learn is called At Ease, which I know you know well is basically a military term or command for relax in essence. So you've mentioned a couple of times COVID and the impacts that it's had on our communities and military families. But let's look at maybe some of the positive of what COVID has offered us. What are some of the new COVID hobbies that you and your family have, or maybe have you done any kind of, staycations or, something like that? Tell us some of your fun new COVID hobbies.
Yeah, COVID has really provided an opportunity to experience life in a different way. I traveled all the time for my work before. And when you settle down and you have all this time at home, I'm doing stuff like, man, I am brewing kombucha.
Oh, nice.
Oh my God.
We're gonna have to talk offline about that.
Oh, good.
I'd be curious. Yeah.
Yeah, my favorite flavor. I've been experimenting with lots of them. Chili lime.
Ooh, okay. Look, hey, Kathy, I have to interrupt you. I say this on almost all the episodes, and there's always like a hidden gem that I just don't know to expect. And we prepare for all these episodes, but I did not know you were brewing kombucha. So I'll have to learn more offline about that.
Yeah, and that was not like in the line of things that I did before either. So, it is fun. I would get bushels of peaches from the farmer's market and make peach chutney and peach brandy preserves and peach tea, all kinds of things. And here we've been doing a lot of staycation stuff. I'm walking the canals in the DC area every morning. Never did that before.
Yeah.
So beautiful, right?
Well, I would agree, and my wife and I, we don't probably aren't doing as much, but we're doing some similar things. We're trying to, and we have young girls. We're trying to not only watch maybe some of those national park tours with our girls, just because that's a kind of a cool way to experience that. But we are trying to get out, and matter of fact, tennis. My girls are young, so they're interested in new sports, and what we found was, all right, well, we can go play tennis. So let's go up to the middle school. There's no one else there. We're distanced from everybody. Let's go play tennis. And so it's just easy things that I think if we look at all this positively, we're able to gain some new habits and new experiences. So with that, well, thank you for sharing that. That was really cool. I really do want to learn more. I don't know that I'll be brewing, but I am definitely a kombucha drinker because I do not partake in other adult beverages. So that's my go-to. Well, with that, we do need to wrap up the show. But Kathy, I always want to allow our guests to share what are some things that you would like to either recap and or leave with our Dominion Energy leaders and listeners that would be important for them to remember.
Here's what I'd say. At Blue Star Families, we are really happy warriors. We love our work. And one of the things we love most about it is having amazing partners like you all at Dominion Energy. And I think we're going to really grow our opportunity to provide ways that we can partner together, do work, at the employee military family level. Some great things coming up around Christmas, as well as with your leadership level around employment. So working with you, talking with you, this is the stuff that makes us feel really, really great. And I just appreciate the opportunity to do it.
Well, thank you. Us too. And matter of fact, one of my partners within the company, who is our senior community engagement policy director, I don't think she'll mind me mentioning her name. It's in our directory anyway. But Maria Tamburi is a military spouse, and she has been someone that I know we've been able to introduce to you all, and vice versa. And Maria, I have to give her thanks. She and her team have been really instrumental in kicking off our partnership with you all. What is the Blue Star Families website, if you don't mind mentioning that?
Yep, it's www.bluestarfam.org, or you can Google Blue Star Families and it'll come up. And we'd love to have you check us out, join. It's free, and get you engaged with the things we do.
That's awesome. Well, Kathy, thank you so much. I don't often get to say this, but please tell your family I said hello, because I know some of them. And for our listeners, if you heard a little bit of barking and so forth, this is a family-friendly, very, very casual podcast. And so we were able to have Kathy's family dog join us, and I'm glad that hopefully he or she approves of what we've just done. But anyway, Kathy, thank you so much, and we'll be talking to you soon.
Talk to you soon, Matt. Thanks.
That's all we have for today's episode. We'd like to thank our guests for joining us, and we hope you enjoyed the conversation. For more information about the company's military program, visit dominionenergy.com/military or search military program on the company's HR home site. To provide feedback for the show or to send us your questions, email militaryrelations@dominionenergy.com. A special thanks to Dennis McDade, Air Force veteran employee, for our theme music. Join us for our next episode when we have Navy veteran Dan Mish, founder and co-director of the Veterans Advanced Energy Project, on the show, and where we talk about Dan's military and transition experiences and how he became interested in the energy industry, why he decided to start the Veterans Advanced Energy Project, the value veterans add to the energy industry, and things veterans and employers should know. Thank you for listening, and remember, actions speak louder.
I'll hold your hands and you hold mine. Connect and walk ourselves up to the top. Support and power develop till we can rise above exploitation and pain.
Welcome to General Understanding, a conversation for betterment for all employees to learn more about veterans, a platform for unity, embracing communities, perfect opportunity to value you and me, those who served our country and fought for our rights, to the family and friends of those who sacrificed. This is dedicated to all, and by the way, I salute our armed forces every day as your holiday.